Picture a place where the laws of the universe are pushed to their absolute breaking point, standing at the very edge of physical reality, a world born from the most violent and catastrophic explosion imaginable, yet resting now in profound, unbreakable silence. Here, the unfathomable weight of an entire solar system is mercilessly crushed into a flawless sphere no larger than a single human city. Imagine a heavy ocean of solid iron, glowing faintly in the freezing, eternal dark of the interstellar void. It is a landscape so perfectly smooth and unimaginably rigid that a mountain here rises no higher than a single grain of sand. The gravity commanding this world is so immense that it physically bends the light of distant galaxies, wrapping the visual fabric of reality itself around a dark, silent core. If we were to look closer, beneath this unbreakable metallic crust, we would find a bizarre and suffocating realm where the foundations of normal chemistry entirely cease to exist. It is an exotic subatomic world of frictionless quantum oceans and strange, elongated structures stronger than anything ever conceived by humanity. These silent, spinning monoliths hold the ultimate cosmic paradox, quietly whispering the deeper secrets of extreme physics to the empty, uncaring cosmos. Surprisingly, the human mind can travel to these terrifying and majestic extremes while the physical body remains entirely at rest. You're completely safe here, anchored securely in the quiet comfort and familiar warmth of your own resting place. The sheer, incomprehensible scale of these cosmic wonders puts the fleeting worries of the day into a calming perspective, dissolving them completely into the vastness of the deep sky. This quiet room is your personal sanctuary, a gentle barrier shielding you from the chaotic, high-energy storms that rage across the galactic spiral arms. You can let go of the invisible gravity that holds your daily thoughts so tightly, allowing your breathing to slow and your tired muscles to soften deeply into the mattress. These beautiful, terrifying wonders are yours to inherit as you sleep, a mesmerizing tapestry of iron and starlight woven directly into the fabric of your dreams. As the night deepens around you, let your eyes softly close and your mind drift steadily outward, leaving the atmosphere of our fragile world for the endless velvet dark. We are traveling back across the eons, moving silently toward the site of a radiant celestial titan's final, explosive breath. Deep within the ruins of a massive supernova, a tiny and impossibly dense core remains. Deep within the ruins of a massive supernova, a tiny and impossibly dense core remains suspended in the silent, fading glow of a shattered star. This cosmic graveyard was once the domain of a radiant giant, a celestial titan that burned brilliantly for millions of years before reaching its explosive end. Now, only the skeletal remains float in the interstellar void, obscured by expanding clouds of violently ejected plasma and cosmic dust. Drifting through this nebulous shroud of scattered heavy elements, a profound stillness contrasts with the cataclysm that just occurred. The colossal shockwave has long since swept past this central point, leaving behind an eerie calm at the very heart of the destruction. Here, hidden from the prying eyes of the broader galaxy, the ultimate survivor anchors the twisting magnetic currents. If we were to look closer, piercing the veil of radioactive debris, we would find a singular monument to gravitational supremacy. This minuscule sphere sits perfectly motionless relative to the expanding shockwave, an anchor of immense gravity in a sea of dissipating energy. It is the silent, beating heart of the cosmos, a definitive endpoint to a glorious stellar evolution. This structure is born when a dying star exhausts its final reserves of nuclear fuel, ending a billion-year war against its own immense weight. For eons, the outward pressure of atomic fusion held the crushing force of gravity at bay in a delicate, perfectly balanced celestial dance. When the core finally fuses into iron, this life-sustaining energy abruptly ceases, and the star's outer layers find themselves entirely unsupported. Without the fierce fire of fusion to push outward, the merciless grip of gravity instantly takes absolute control of the stellar mass. the massive outer envelopes of the star plummet inward at a significant fraction of the speed of light, rushing blindly toward the dead iron center. Trillions of tons of incandescent plasma crash into the core with unimaginable kinetic force, triggering a rebound that shatters the star. Left behind in the wake of this catastrophic implosion is a profoundly transformed entity, forged solely by the mechanics of collapse. The outward explosion flings the star's ashes across the galaxy, but the central core is driven inexorably inward upon itself. It is a spectacular rebirth through destruction, transforming a vast, glowing orb into a dark, ultra-dense phantom of the deep cosmos. Surprisingly, the universe compresses a mass entirely greater than our entire Sun into a smooth sphere no wider than a terrestrial city. The sheer scale of this spatial reduction defies all earthly intuition, demanding a complete reimagining of physical reality. An object that once spanned millions of kilometers across now easily fits within the geographic boundaries of a single human metropolis. To grasp this bizarre transformation, one must envision the entire mass of our solar system's central star squeezed into an unimaginably tight radius. Every mountain, ocean, and continent of 1,000,000 Earths would be rendered utterly microscopic within the confines of this dense, dark orb. The boundary of this sphere marks a radical departure from normal space, creating an environment where the geometry of reality sharply curves. Navigating across this compact world would take a mere afternoon on foot, yet it contains the gravitational authority of a celestial giant. The horizon sharply falls away just a few kilometers in the distance, wrapping tightly around the hyperdense interior. It stands as a profound paradox of nature, where the unimaginably immense is permanently locked within the incomprehensibly small. Deep within this suffocating environment, protons and electrons are crushed together with such terrifying ferocity that they merge entirely into neutrons. The atomic structure we recognize on Earth, consisting mostly of empty space, is brutally dismantled by the overwhelming pressure of the collapsing core. Gravity physically overrides the fundamental electrostatic forces that normally keep subatomic particles safely separated from one another. As the implosion reaches its terrifying climax, the electron clouds of every atom are violently smashed directly into their corresponding nuclei. This violent subatomic collision forces a mass conversion, turning the vibrant chemistry of the star into a uniform, colourless sea of neutral particles. It is the ultimate cosmic eraser, wiping away the distinct identities of elements like oxygen, carbon, and iron in a fraction of a second. What remains is a bizarre state of matter that resembles a single gargantuan atomic nucleus, suspended in the vacuum of deep space. The repulsive forces that give ordinary matter its volume are completely defeated, allowing these newly forged neutrons to pack together shoulder to shoulder. This subatomic transmutation cements the remnant's identity, ensuring it can never return to the luminous, airy state of its former existence. Scooping a single teaspoon of this stellar material would yield a substance weighing billions of tons if miraculously transported to Earth. The density achieved in this exotic realm stretches the very fabric of physical possibility, turning the concept of weight into an absolute extreme. To hold such a minuscule amount would be to hold the equivalent mass of a massive terrestrial mountain range. If one were to drop this tiny spoonful onto the surface of our planet, the catastrophic results would be immediate and apocalyptic. The sheer concentrated mass would effortlessly punch through the planetary crust, sinking straight to the Earth's core like a stone through thin air. It would not merely rest on the ground, but violently reorganize the gravitational equilibrium of everything it encountered on its downward plunge. Pondering the texture of this incredibly dense matter reveals a substance completely alien to any earthly laboratory or human experience. It is a material so tightly bound that it effectively mocks the fragility of the rock and steel that build our world. This terrifying density serves as a silent testament to the absolute, unconquerable power of a dying star's final gravitational embrace. Picture a colossal mountain of solid granite effortlessly condensed into the exact dimensions of a solitary grain of sand. This striking visual captures the sheer magnitude of the spatial compression taking place in the dark aftermath of the supernova explosion. The majestic peaks and deep valleys of an entire mountain range are unceremoniously crushed down to a microscopic point without losing a single ounce of their original mass. Shrinking matter to this extreme degree requires an energy input so vast that it can only be generated by the collapse of a stellar core. Every individual atom within that theoretical mountain is stripped of its empty space, its electrons forced into a fatal embrace with the nucleus. The resulting microscopic speck contains the identical gravitational pull of the sprawling geologic formation it once was. Holding this heavy grain of sand would require structural supports capable of bearing the load of millions of tons of concentrated earth. It defies the human mind to reconcile the tiny visual profile of the object with the overwhelming physical reality of its weight. This severe condensation perfectly illustrates the bizarre physics that strictly govern the dark, quiet surface of these cosmic spheres. The dramatic birth of this dark remnant requires mere seconds to complete, yet the resulting sphere easily outlives the very star that created it. While a massive sun might burn brightly for tens of millions of years, its final collapse is a sudden, violently abrupt punctuation mark. In the time it takes to draw a single human breath, a sprawling giant is permanently transformed into an immortal frozen core. Time stretches differently for this incredibly dense survivor, granting it a strange form of eternal life in the cold, expanding universe. Long after the fiery nebulous clouds of the supernova have faded into invisible drifting dust, this solid orb continues its silent vigil. It is a cosmic fossil, a permanent geological record of a brief, brilliant stellar life that ended in absolute catastrophe. Measuring the lifespan of this dead core stretches our comprehension of time, as it will persist long after all normal stars have exhausted their fuel. It sits quietly through the eons, patiently witnessing the slow rotation of the galaxy and the eventual fading of the cosmos. This tiny, heavy sphere achieves a dark immortality, reigning as an unbroken monument in an ever-changing, decaying universe. Escaping the turbulent, chaotic center of the immediate blast zone, the newly formed core eventually settles into the freezing, empty vacuum of space. The violent shockwaves of the supernova explosion race outward at incredible speeds, leaving the dense remnant behind in an ever-widening pocket of interstellar silence. This profound isolation marks the beginning of the sphere's long, solitary journey through the dark, spiral arms of the galaxy. Away from the intense radiation and blinding light of its own destruction, the environment surrounding the heavy orb becomes profoundly still. The violent cosmic winds that once battered its surface give way to the perfect, absolute zero temperature of the deep cosmic void. It drifts through the quiet interstellar medium like a ghost ship, a dark wanderer completely detached from the bright, active star-forming regions. Observing this solitary drift reveals a stark contrast between the violent heat of its birth and the freezing dark of its current domain. The massive sphere commands an invisible empire of gravity, pulling quietly at the sparse dust and gas that occasionally drifts too close. It has traded the bright, noisy chaos of a living star for the serene, freezing peace of a permanent stellar graveyard. Searing temperatures during the core's very first moments of existence easily reach trillions of degrees before the violent structure begins rapidly cooling. In the immediate fraction of a second following the implosion, the compressed matter is unimaginably hotter than the very center of our own living sun. This infernal heat represents the kinetic energy of an entire star violently slamming to a sudden, catastrophic halt against itself. Such extreme thermal conditions cannot be sustained for long, and the tiny sphere immediately begins hemorrhaging its vast heat into the surrounding void. Through complex subatomic processes, the core sheds its thermal energy at an astonishing rate, cooling by millions of degrees in mere minutes. The furious, chaotic vibrations of the newly merged particles slowly begin to settle down as the intense heat bleeds away into the cold vacuum. Despite this rapid initial plunge in temperature, the surface remains incredibly hot for thousands of years, glowing fiercely in invisible X-ray light. The cooling process gradually slows down, eventually settling into a steady, subtle warmth that will persist for billions of years. This slow thermal decay leaves the heavy sphere as a smouldering ember, quietly preserving the fading memory of an ancient cosmic fire. Ghostly neutrinos flood outward in an unstoppable silent wave, carrying away the vast majority of the dying star's incredible explosive energy. These elusive, nearly massless particles are born in the trillions during the violent merging of protons and electrons at the height of the core's collapse. Because they barely interact with normal matter, they easily slip through the dense layers of the imploding star without hitting a single obstacle. Rushing outward at nearly the speed of light, this invisible tsunami of subatomic phantoms outpaces even the blinding flash of the supernova explosion itself. They represent the true hidden power of the stellar death, silently draining away the core's heat and energy into the darkest corners of the universe. If you could see this elusive radiation, the entire galaxy would flash brightly for a single fleeting second. Long after this spectral flood has passed through the Earth and vanished, the tiny, dense core remains behind in the silence. The neutrinos take with them the final frantic screams of the massive star, leaving only a dark, perfectly silent sphere in their wake. This massive, invisible wave marks the definitive end of the cataclysm, ushering in the long, quiet age of the ultra-dense remnant. Unlike rocky planets and moons, which bulge at their equators and bear the uneven scars of chaotic cosmic impacts, this dark monument tolerates no imperfections. The sheer magnitude of the inward pull relentlessly irons out any macroscopic deviation, forcing the entire structure into strict, unyielding mathematical perfection. Even a microscopic irregularity on the surface experiences an inward tug so violent that it is instantly crushed back into the uniform, elegant curve. To run a hand over this celestial body would be to feel a smoothness that defies all natural landscapes we understand. It is a terrifying symmetry, an expression of physics pushed to an extreme, where matter has absolutely no choice but to conform to the dictates of mass. This unbroken curve stretches endlessly across the sharply falling horizon, standing as a dark monument to the dictatorial grip of gravity. If geological forces somehow attempt to push material upward, the resulting structures are immediately subdued by the crushing environment. Mountains on this alien landscape do technically exist, yet they rise no higher than a few microscopic millimeters before the gravitational pull violently flattens them. Any accumulation of matter trying to build a peak is instantly dragged down, completely unable to support its own microscopic weight against the star's demand for flatness. Picture a sprawling mountain range, complete with complex fault lines and tectonic shifts, miniaturized to the sheer height of a single layer of paint. These vast, unimaginably flat elevations spread out across the glowing iron ocean, representing the absolute maximum topography this brutal world will ever allow. The deep tectonic stresses are immense, yet the resulting geographical features would barely be perceptible to the lightest human touch. The very concept of a majestic landscape is thus entirely redefined, stripped forever of towering peaks, rolling hills, and deep, plunging canyons. Here, a bump the size of a grain of rice represents an Everest of impossible proportions, standing in sheer, temporary defiance of the crushing weight. As you breathe deeply and let your muscles sink further into your resting space, appreciate the gentle, forgiving gravity of our own beautifully uneven world. Descending to examine this perfectly flat terrain reveals a solid crust forged from an endless, glowing expanse of extremely compressed iron atoms. This is not the familiar rustic metal that builds our earthly bridges and towers, but a profoundly altered super-dense isotopic lattice. The atoms are packed together so tightly that their outer electron shells seamlessly overlap, creating an unbreakable, perfectly conductive armor around the dead star. The surface gleams with the dull, ominous luster of an impossibly heavy ocean that has been instantaneously frozen solid in the vacuum of space. This metallic shell serves as the definitive boundary between the empty, freezing void and the chaotic, bubbling quantum soup trapped beneath. It is a crystalline structure of unimaginable, terrifying rigidity, locking the star's cooling energies into a geometric, unyielding, microscopic grid. Walking across this heavy iron sea would mean traversing the absolute densest solid surface in the entire universe. The metallic lattice rings with silent, continuous vibrations, echoing the internal tremors of the star's slow, agonizing cool-down over the passing eons. This impenetrable shield guards the remnant's deepest, darkest mysteries, holding back an interior pressure that would otherwise blow a lesser celestial body apart in an instant. Standing upon this iron landscape would subject an observer to a gravitational downward pull, billions of times stronger than Earth's comforting embrace. The fundamental force that keeps our feet planted firmly on the ground is magnified here into an immediate lethal crush of astronomical proportions. Human physiology, designed strictly for the gentle tug of a small rocky planet, would be instantaneously reduced to a smeared atomic film upon the crust. It is a realm where the concept of weight loses all relatable meaning, transforming from a gentle tether into an omnipotent, destructive weapon. The iron surface does not merely hold objects, it violently claims them, permanently integrating any foreign matter directly into its super-dense crystalline lattice. This inescapable grip ensures that the dead star forever remains a sealed cosmic tomb, relentlessly hoarding everything that brushes against its flawless shell. Consider the simple, everyday act of dropping a small object from the modest height of just a single meter above the surface. In this tyrannical gravitational field, that object would not gently fall, but would be violently accelerated to strike the ground at millions of kilometers per hour. The tiny, seemingly harmless gap of space between the release point and the iron crust becomes a runway for unimaginable, catastrophic acceleration. Upon impact, the kinetic energy released by a simple dropped stone would easily rival the explosive yield of a modern nuclear weapon. The object would not bounce, dent, or shatter. It would instantaneously detonate into a blinding flash of hard radiation and subatomic shrapnel. Such a microscopic impact would send powerful, ringing seismic waves rippling rapidly across the entire crust of the perfect sphere. This terrifying dynamic transforms the empty space immediately above the star into a zone of extreme, latent violence waiting to be suddenly unleashed. The sheer, terrifying speed of this descent makes the invisible atmosphere a gauntlet of deadly, inescapable acceleration. As you lie perfectly still, noticing the soft rhythm of your own breathing, allow the terrifying reality of that distant, crushing world to quietly wash over you. Attempting to leave this massive gravitational well demands a staggering outward velocity of more than half the absolute speed of light. To simply launch away from the surface requires an expenditure of energy that completely defies the capabilities of any known or theoretical propulsion system. The dead star hoards its mass with an envious, unbreakable grip, effectively creating a one-way street where matter may enter but can never ever leave. Rockets and chemical thrusters are rendered entirely obsolete in a domain where the very fabric of space is pulled so steeply and violently inward. The acceleration required to break free would tear any physical vessel apart atom by atom, long before it cleared the microscopic atmosphere. It is a celestial vault, permanently locking away its contents with a brutal speed limit that aggressively brushes against the fundamental laws of relativity. Only the most energetic, massless quantum particles possess the sheer speed necessary to climb out of this incredibly steep invisible pit. For all solid matter, The glowing iron surface represents an absolute final destination, the definitive end of the line in the grand cosmic journey. The massive escape velocity stands as an invisible, towering fortress wall, guaranteeing the dense core will never surrender a single ounce of its stolen mass. Even pure light itself struggles violently to leave the surface, expending tremendous energy just to climb away from the crushing gravity. As fragile photons fight their way upward through the steep gravitational well, they are physically drained, stretching out and losing their innate vigor. This profound loss of energy shifts their frequency downward, moving them inevitably toward the longer, weaker, and dimmer red end of the electromagnetic spectrum. A brilliant blue flash originating on the iron crust would appear as a dim, exhausted red glow by the time it reached a distant observer. Gravity acts as a relentless cosmic filter, sapping the vitality from the universe's fastest, most ephemeral traveller before it can completely escape into the void. The light is not slowed down in its journey, but it pays a heavy gravitational toll, sacrificing its vibrant frequency simply to buy its freedom. This striking phenomenon, known as gravitational redshift, visibly demonstrates how massive objects can strictly dictate the behaviour of massless energy. The star literally drains the colour from its own brilliant emissions, cloaking itself in the tired, stretched wavelengths of deeply exhausted light. It is a visual testament to the immense, invisible anchor that is dragging down absolutely everything within its formidable sphere of influence. Imagine looking directly at the sharp horizon of this dense sphere, only to realise the visual geometry of the universe has fundamentally broken down. The immense gravity physically bends the path of escaping light so severely that it curves completely around the star's perfect smooth curvature. This intense optical distortion allows a distant observer to actually see the entire back of the star while staring directly at its front hemisphere. This severe gravitational lensing transforms the dead remnant into a bizarre optical illusion, where straight lines are permanently curved by the sheer force of pure mass. Reality itself becomes fluid, bending in absolute submission to the will of the heavy, dark core anchored deep in the centre of the visual distortion. Let your eyes soften and your mind float as you visualise this impossible, curving light bending through the quiet, freezing dark of space. Directly above the bizarre optical illusions of the iron landscape lies an atmosphere that is practically non-existent by any standard terrestrial measure. While our own comforting blue sky stretches upward for hundreds of kilometres, this alien envelope of gas measures perhaps only a few mere centimetres in total thickness. The suffocating gravity crushes the available gas down into a microscopic glowing film that hugs the perfect metallic sphere with terrifying, suffocating tightness. If you could kneel upon the glowing crust, this entire atmospheric layer would barely reach the height of your fragile ankles. Yet, within this incredibly shallow pool of gas, the atmospheric pressure is magnified to degrees that would instantaneously crush our strongest deep-sea submarines. It is a razor-thin halo of extreme physics, a complete planetary sky violently compressed into a flat, radiant ribbon wrapping the heavy world. There are no sweeping weather systems, no towering storm clouds, and absolutely no gentle breezes in this claustrophobic, permanently flattened sky. The sheer downward force strictly prevents any vertical movement of the gas, locking the atmosphere into a permanent, stagnant, and unimaginably dense state. It is the ultimate confinement, a celestial sky completely stripped of all volume and violently reduced to a mere mathematical boundary. This microscopic, glowing atmospheric layer is not composed of familiar nitrogen or oxygen, but is instead a dense sea of pure carbon or helium. These lighter elemental ashes, left over from the star's violent death, float gently above the solid iron ground, having separated strictly by their atomic weight. The immense gravity acts as a flawless cosmic centrifuge, rapidly sorting the remaining elements into distinct pure layers with absolute unerring precision. The ultra-compressed helium or carbon ocean glows with a quiet, lethal intensity, forming a plasma that smoothly coats the iron lattice just below. This razor-thin ocean of pure elemental fire serves as the absolute outer boundary between the star's immense mass and the frozen, empty vacuum of space. It is a sky made of pure, compressed fuel that can never ignite, perpetually locked in a strange state of glowing, suspended animation. This perfect, undisturbed layer elegantly completes the architecture of the dead star's exterior, sealing the immense internal pressures entirely away from the wider galaxy. The glowing carbon or helium sits in eternal, silent equilibrium, a fragile-looking skin pulled incredibly taut over an unbreakable metallic bone. It marks the quiet, radiant edge of the perfect sphere, a final, glowing warning to the universe of the unimaginable, crushing depths that lie just millimeters below. Just below this quiet, radiant edge, the crushing depths hide an energetic secret born from the star's violent collapse. As the massive progenitor star collapsed inward, the fundamental law of conservation of angular momentum took absolute control of its motion. Like a cosmic ice skater pulling their arms tightly against their chest, the shrinking core was forced to spin faster and faster as its radius violently decreased. The lazy, drifting rotation of a stellar giant was violently magnified into an uncontrollable, dizzying twirl that defies logic. The sheer mass of a solar system, squeezed into a tiny sphere, retains all the rotational inertia it possessed before the great implosion. This tremendous rotational energy is permanently trapped within the ultra-dense remnant, unable to easily dissipate into the surrounding vacuum of space. It transforms the dead, heavy sphere into a terrifyingly dynamic engine of kinetic power, locked in a perpetual silent pirouette. The surface moves with immense, relentless momentum, dragging the surrounding fabric of reality along with it in a ceaseless, dizzying blur. It is a monument to cosmic momentum, spinning endlessly in the dark as a testament to the dying star's final, frantic gasp. Deep within the silence of the interstellar void, some of these newly forged objects rotate hundreds of times in a single heartbeat. The equator of this compact world moves at a significant fraction of the speed of light, tearing through the vacuum with mind-bending velocity. Despite this extreme centrifugal force desperately trying to tear the star apart, the crushing gravity of the iron crust holds everything perfectly in place. An ordinary planet subjected to such agonizing spin would instantly shatter, flinging its crushed continents and oceans into the deep dark. Here, the absolute dictatorship of mass overpowers the desperate outward pull of the hyperrotation, demanding strict obedience from every single atom. The sphere maintains its flawless geometry, humming with a terrifying kinetic vibration that echoes the cataclysmic energy of its explosive birth. The sheer rotational speed generates a physical tension across the crust that would easily annihilate lesser forms of celestial matter. It is a dizzying, invisible storm of momentum, where the very surface of the world is perpetually rushing forward at unimaginable speeds. Such extreme velocity turns the tiny star into an unparalleled cosmic gyroscope, perfectly balanced on an invisible axis in the empty void. Surprisingly, the universe harnesses this violent kinetic energy through the invisible architecture of a twisting, hyper-intense magnetic field. The star's collapsing magnetic lines are squeezed together just as violently as its physical matter, amplifying their strength to incomprehensible levels. This invisible web captures the surrounding sea of volatile subatomic particles, accelerating them outward along the magnetic poles with devastating force. Twin beams of blinding high-energy radiation are thus born, shooting violently outward from opposite ends of the rotating sphere. These concentrated jets pierce the surrounding cosmic dust, blazing brilliantly across the electromagnetic spectrum from radio waves to fierce, deadly gamma rays. The magnetic field acts as a colossal, flawless lens, focusing the remnant's residual power into twin pillars of unyielding celestial fire. The energy contained within these narrow beams outshines the collective output of millions of ordinary gentle suns quietly burning in the distance. As you let your shoulders drop and your chest rise with a slow breath, picture this silent, invisible beacon cutting through the cold dark. It is a terrifying display of raw, channeled power, born from the absolute darkest depths of the crushed metallic core. Because the magnetic poles rarely align perfectly with the star's true axis of rotation, these intense twin beams are forced into a wild, sweeping arc. As the ultra-dense sphere spins rapidly, the cones of radiation are violently whipped around the sky, painting the cosmos with sweeping strokes of invisible light. It operates exactly like a solitary, hyperactive lighthouse stationed on the dangerous rocky shores of a dark, turbulent galactic ocean. Anyone caught in the path of this sweeping beam would experience a sudden, blinding flash of energy followed by immediate, profound darkness. This intense cycle repeats with terrifying rapidity, entirely dependent on the furious rotational speed of the dead stellar core. The lighthouse effect transforms a static, invisible sphere into a dynamic, pulsing beacon that boldly announces its hidden presence to the broader universe. The sheer circumference of the sweeping beam can stretch across entire star systems, brushing over distant planets with an invisible, highly radioactive touch. It serves as a continuous sweeping radar, cutting through nebulae and dark matter with its flawless, brilliant searchlight. The dead star, though incredibly small and dense, manages to cast a massive, moving shadow across the vast tapestry of the night sky. If we were to observe this phenomenon from the distant safety of Earth, our vast radio telescopes would capture these regular, sweeping flashes. To the massive, sensitive dishes listening quietly in the terrestrial dark, the sweeping beam registers as a distinct, rhythmic ticking sound. This precise, repetitive drumming across the static of deep space earned these exotic objects the evocative, lasting title of pulsars. Each individual tick represents a single, complete revolution of the massive iron sphere, a solitary flash of the lighthouse beam crossing our tiny planetary shores. Early astronomers who first detected this uncanny, perfect rhythm briefly wondered if they were hearing the deliberate transmissions of a distant alien intelligence. It is a cosmic heartbeat, a regular pulsing drumbeat echoing through the cold void from the grave of a shattered giant. Recording these signals requires sifting through the chaotic, noisy background radiation of the galaxy to find the steady, reliable pulse. The unmistakable rhythm cuts through the cosmic static like a precise metronome, undeniably artificial in its flawless regularity, yet entirely natural in origin. It forms a celestial symphony of ticking stars, whispering the secrets of their extreme environments across billions of miles of empty space. This relentless rhythm possesses a staggering stability, maintaining its precise beat with a consistency that defies the chaotic, violent nature of the cosmos. The immense inertia of the ultra-dense sphere makes its rotation incredibly difficult to disturb, ensuring the pulses arrive with flawless mathematical regularity. The ticking of these celestial lighthouses easily rivals the precision of the most advanced atomic timekeepers ever engineered by humanity. One could reliably set a mechanical watch by the arrival of these invisible flashes, trusting the spin of a dead star over millions of years. Even deep within the turbulent interstellar medium, the beat remains steady, entirely unaffected by the surrounding storms of drifting plasma and rogue radiation. The immense weight of the crust anchors the spin, refusing to yield to any minor external forces that might attempt to slow it down. Such perfection makes these rotating remnants incredibly valuable tools for measuring the vast distances and subtle gravitational ripples of the broader universe. Allow the steady, rhythmic beat of your own pulse to gently anchor you as you contemplate this flawless cosmic metronome beating in the dark. It is a profound comfort to find such strict, unwavering order hidden within the most extreme, chaotic environments imaginable. Despite this incredible stability, the absolute laws of thermodynamics dictate that nothing in the universe can remain in perpetual, flawless motion forever. The twin beams of radiation carry away microscopic fractions of the star's rotational energy with every single furious sweep across the sky. Over the incredibly long passage of millions of years, this continuous energetic drain acts as an invisible celestial brake on the heavy spinning core. The rapid rotation imperceptibly but inevitably slows down, stretching the time between each sweeping pulse by tiny, barely measurable fractions of a second. This steady deceleration is incredibly subtle, detectable only through decades of careful, continuous observation by terrestrial astronomers tracking the slight delay. It is the long, agonizing sigh of a dying engine, slowly losing its fierce kinetic fire to the endless, hungry vacuum of the void. As the spin gently decays, the intense magnetic field holding the radiation beams also begins to subtly weaken and fray at the edges. The cosmic metronome is winding down, its once frantic ticking spreading out as the dead star slowly surrenders its stolen momentum to the galaxy. It is a gentle, inevitable decline, a slow fade into quietness that awaits every single spinning remnant across the vast expanse of space. Occasionally, a sudden, microscopic acceleration interrupts this slow, agonizing deceleration, instantly snapping the regular rhythm of the sweeping beam. This unexpected hiccup, known to astounded astronomers as a glitch, violently jolts the star, momentarily forcing it to spin just a fraction faster. The flawless metronome skips a noticeable beat, betraying the hidden, chaotic turmoil churning violently beneath the perfect, solid iron crust. The violent transfer of momentum causes the entire iron surface to briefly ring with immense, silent seismic waves that ripple across the equator. Such a microscopic change in a massive object releases incredible amounts of pent-up energy, momentarily heating the crust before settling back into a steady rhythm. It is a brief, violent rebellion against the inevitable slowing of time, a sudden kick from the deep interior. Peering beneath the smooth surface, astrophysicists theorize this sudden jolt occurs when the rigid outer shell briefly catches on the swirling fluid ocean beneath it. The perfectly conductive iron crust constantly decelerates as it sheds energy, while the frictionless quantum fluid deep inside continues to spin at its original, terrifying velocity. The widening difference in speed between the outer shell and the inner core creates an unbearable twisting tension within the depths of the star. Eventually, this immense physical stress violently resolves itself, forcing the rapidly spinning inner fluid to suddenly transfer a massive pulse of momentum directly to the slowing crust. It is a microscopic starquake, a subatomic restructuring that physically kicks the massive outer shell into a higher, faster gear for a brief moment. Sink a little deeper into your quiet environment, feeling the steady pull of gravity holding you safe from these violent, invisible cosmic forces. This strange interaction reveals that the star is not a single, solid mass, but a delicate mechanical system of decoupled layers sliding against one another. The frictionless fluid acts as a massive hidden flywheel, storing ancient momentum and occasionally feeding it back into the visible, slowing outer shell. It is a bizarre, invisible dance of extreme physics taking place beneath a crust that appears perfectly smooth and completely undisturbed from the outside. Ultimately, this grand, energetic display cannot last forever, as the long, slow march of time permanently drains the final reserves of the star's kinetic energy. The rotation eventually becomes far too slow to generate the extreme magnetic tension required to power the brilliant sweeping radiation beams. When the spin inevitably falls below this critical threshold, the lighthouse mechanism sputters, flickers, and finally fails altogether. The twin jets of intense radiation simply cease to exist, instantly silencing the rhythmic ticking that once boldly echoed across the galactic expanse. Stripped of its invisible voice and its radiant lighthouse beam, the dead core goes quietly dark, fading completely into the absolute obscurity of the interstellar background. It becomes a silent, spinning ghost ship, doomed to wander the empty cosmic sea without ever flashing its brilliant signal again. No longer a pulsar, the object returns to being a simple, cold sphere of impossibly dense matter, drifting anonymously through the dark spiral arms. The universe reclaims the energy it once lent to the shattered star, leaving behind a dark, perfect monument to a brilliant era long past. The cosmic metronome finally halts its ticking, surrendering to the profound, unbroken silence that waits at the end of all stellar evolution. This profound, unbroken silence of stellar evolution is merely a mask for a more invisible and haunting form of cosmic dominance. Certain rare and elusive remnants, known to the watchful eyes of the universe as magnetars, possess magnetic fields of such staggering intensity that they defy all standard terrestrial laws of physics. These invisible webs of force are trillions of times stronger than the magnetic shield that gently protects the Earth from the solar wind, creating a zone where the vacuum itself becomes a pressurized active medium. While a common pulsar relies on the frantic visible energy of its spin to announce its presence, the magnetar draws its terrifying power from these twisted, hyper-concentrated lines of magnetic flux. They are the most magnetic objects in existence, crafting a localized environment where the fundamental forces of nature are pushed to their absolute breaking point. It is a quiet, static lethality that permeates the surrounding space, far more potent than any physical weapon ever conceived by a sentient mind, acting as a phantom anchor in the void. This invisible influence extends far beyond the small metallic horizon of the star itself, reaching out into the cold dark with an unyielding and jealous grip. The magnetism is so extraordinarily powerful that it exerts a physical pressure on the very structure of the surrounding space, warping the geometry of the void and influencing every particle that enters its domain. It is a presence that can be felt long before it is seen, a ghostly architecture of tension that anchors the star in its own private reality, shielding it from the gaze of the wider galaxy. Surprisingly, the reach of this invisible leviathan is so vast that its effect could be felt across the staggering distance of the deep lunar void. If a magnetar were placed at the current position of the moon, its magnetic field would be powerful enough to instantaneously strip the digital information from every credit card on our planet. It would reach through the atmosphere and the crust alike, seeking out any trace of magnetic alignment and unceremoniously erasing it with a single, silent sweep of its invisible fingers. Such a distance, nearly 400,000 kilometers of empty space, provides no refuge from the unrelenting and surgical pull of this stellar ghost. The field lines do not merely pass through matter, they dominate it, imposing their own chaotic order on any material unfortunate enough to be caught in their path. It is a scale of influence that renders the vast distances of our solar system intimate and fragile, proving that space is never truly empty when a magnetar is near, but is instead filled with the star's jealous presence. This phantom reach serves as a reminder of how interconnected the distant cosmos remains through these invisible, far-reaching threads of primordial energy. Even from the safety of our distant world, we are technically within the theoretical touch of these magnetic giants scattered across the dark spiral arms of the galaxy. It is a peaceful realization that such immense power exists so far away, anchored securely in the silent dark graveyards of the deep sky, far from the concerns of our small terrestrial lives. If we were to look closer, past the glowing atmosphere and into the subatomic heart of the star, we would witness a profound and surreal transformation of matter. The magnetic field is so extraordinarily strong that it actually warps the fundamental shape of the atoms making up the heavy iron crust. Rather than maintaining their typical spherical or complex electron clouds, the atoms are violently stretched into long, thin, and elegant cylinders that align perfectly with the star's magnetic axis. This radical restructuring of atomic geometry happens because the magnetic forces completely overwhelm the internal electrical bonds that usually define an element's identity and volume. The electrons are forced to spiral tightly along the field lines, conforming to the magnetic architecture rather than the rules of standard chemistry we learn on Earth. In this realm, the very building blocks of the universe are elongated like shimmering strands of crystalline thread, aligned in perfect, haunting unison across the entire metallic surface. This physical distortion turns the entire surface of the star into a bizarre directional material that behaves unlike anything found in the natural world. Heat and electricity flow with effortless liquid ease along the length of these atomic cylinders, but find themselves completely blocked in any other direction. As you feel the quiet weight of your own body pressing gently into its resting place, appreciate the stability of the spherical atoms that build your own peaceful world, far from this magnetic storm. This invisible web of tension does not remain static or peaceful. Instead, it shifts and twists through the iron crust as the star's internal currents continue to churn. The magnetic field lines behave like massive buried cables under immense mechanical stress, fighting against the rigid constraints of the ultra-dense metallic surface. Over time, this constant invisible movement builds up a reservoir of potential energy that is nothing short of apocalyptic in its scale and hidden power. The crust, already under the incredible pressure of gravity, must also bear the agonizing and relentless torsion of these shifting magnetic roots. It is a slow, agonizing build-up of force, where the very ground is pulled in conflicting directions by the invisible phantoms of the deep interior. This structure acts as a planetary spring, wound tighter and tighter by the eons of magnetic migration taking place within the dark core, waiting for a single moment of release. Deep within the crystalline lattice of the iron sea, this mounting tension eventually reaches a critical and completely unavoidable breaking point. The solid crust, unable to endure the magnetic torsion for another second, suddenly and violently snaps to relieve the unbearable pressure. This phenomenon, known to astronomers as a catastrophic starquake, represents the most powerful tectonic event possible in the physical universe, dwarfing any seismic activity on a rocky planet. The rupture does not occur over miles or even meters, but happens across the entire circumference of the star in a mere fraction of a millisecond. It is a sudden, localized restructuring of the atomic threads, a violent reorganization of the star's hyperdense and crystalline foundation. Though the physical shift is microscopic in scale, the sheer density of the material involved makes the event a cataclysm of the highest order, releasing the energy of 1 billion suns. This sudden release of energy sends massive seismic waves screaming through the superfluid interior and across the perfectly smooth metallic surface. The perfect sphere briefly shudders, ringing like a titanic bell of solid iron in the absolute and terrifying silence of the vacuum. It is a brief, internal rebellion of matter against the magnetic chains that have bound it for thousands of years in the dark, a moment of pure, unadulterated release. Picture a quake shifting the iron surface by just a single, humble micrometer, a distance far smaller than the width of a human hair. Despite this seemingly insignificant movement, the event releases more raw energy than our sun produces in tens of thousands of years of steady burning. The concentrated mass of the crust means that even a microscopic adjustment involves the sudden movement of billions of tons of matter at relativistic speeds. This energy is not dissipated slowly or gently, but is discharged in a single, terrifying burst that saturates the surrounding space with hard radiation. It is the ultimate expression of the magnetar's latent power, turning a tiny seismic shift into a galactic event of staggering proportions. The vacuum itself is momentarily torn and reshaped by the sheer intensity of the outgoing energy wave as it races into the void at the speed of light. As you lie perfectly still, noticing the stillness in your hands and the soft rhythm of your breath, Allow yourself to marvel at this scale of energy. A movement too small for the human eye to see creates a flare that can be detected from across the entire Milky Way galaxy by our most sensitive instruments. It is a profound paradox of the cosmos, where the smallest distances generate the most immense and far-reaching consequences for the structure of the universe. Notice how a sudden burst of gamma rays erupts from the star in the wake of the crustal snap, momentarily illuminating the entire galaxy. This flare is so intense that it can physically affect the upper atmosphere of planets located on the opposite side of the galactic centre. For a fraction of a second, the Magnetar sheds its dark, silent mask and reveals its true, incandescent nature to the wide and watching universe, outshining all other light. This flash of hard radiation carries the signature of the star's internal struggle, a radiant message broadcast across the lonely and vast light years. The high-energy light pierces through the thickest clouds of gas and dust, announcing the occurrence of the starquake to anyone with the technology to see. It is a brief, blinding moment of clarity in a universe that is otherwise filled with slow, steady cycles of stellar birth and inevitable decay. The gamma-ray pulse represents the star's final, desperate attempt to shed the unbearable energy that has built up within its magnetic web. Once the flash has passed, the remnant returns to its smouldering silent state, waiting for the tension to begin its slow and steady climb once more. It is a rhythmic, high-stakes drama played out on a stage of pure energy and subatomic iron, far beyond the reach of human perception. This radiant dominance is so absolute that during the peak of the flare, the Magnetar temporarily outshines everything else in the high-energy sky. Every other star, nebula, and pulsar in the vicinity is rendered invisible by the overwhelming brilliance of the gamma-ray burst. For that fleeting moment, the tiny city-sized sphere becomes the most luminous point in the entire galaxy, a beacon of pure magnetic fury that commands the void. Even the most massive, burning giants in the spiral arms cannot compete with the concentrated output of this single catastrophic event. The flare represents the total conversion of magnetic tension into light, a process that is far more efficient than the nuclear fusion fueling ordinary suns. It is a reminder that the most powerful things in the cosmos are often the ones that have been the most severely compressed and tortured by gravity. The high-energy sky is usually a tapestry of faint, distant whispers, but the Magnetar's scream commands absolute and total attention from the cosmos. It is a singular, dominant voice that rises above the cosmic background, demanding to be heard before fading back into the deep, welcoming dark. Such events are rare, making each flare a precious and terrifying data point in our ongoing understanding of the extreme and hidden universe. Beyond the solid surface, the vacuum surrounding a Magnetar becomes highly polarized, causing light to split and bend simply by passing through empty space. This is a realm where the magnetic field is so dense that even the empty void is filled with virtual particles that respond to the intense flux. Light photons traveling through this zone are forced to choose specific paths, splitting into two distinct components with different speeds and directions. This phenomenon, known as vacuum birefringence, proves that the space around the star is not truly empty, but is a fluid and reactive medium. It acts as a massive, invisible prism, twisting and refracting the light of distant stars that happens to pass through the Magnetar's neighbourhood. The very fabric of the cosmos is altered, becoming a hall of mirrors shaped by the invisible lines of the magnetic leviathan that anchor the core. Let the breath settle as you visualize this invisible, crystalline void, warping the light of 1 billion distant and ancient suns. This bending of light occurs without any physical matter present, relying solely on the extreme concentration of the magnetic field lines in the void. It is a ghostly, beautiful effect that turns the area around the Magnetar into a shimmering, distorted lens of pure magnetic potential and cosmic wonder. Eventually, the relentless and slow march of time begins to drain the vitality of this magnetic leviathan as the internal currents slowly dissipate. Over thousands of years, the magnetic field inevitably decays, losing the fierce, twisting energy that once powered the great starquakes and gamma-ray flares. The lines of force begin to straighten and weaken, surrendering their grip on the iron atoms of the cooling crust and the fluid interior. As the magnetic energy fades, the magnetar settles into a quieter, more stable existence. Much like the pulsars that wander the galaxy in peace, the intense tension in the crust eases, and the atomic cylinders slowly return to their more natural spherical configurations as the external pressure subsides. The star remains dense and heavy, but the invisible, terrifying phantoms that once defined its life have finally gone to rest in the cold dark. This transition marks the end of the star's most violent phase, moving it toward a long, cold future as a simple, cooling remnant. The magnetic Leviathan becomes a silent wanderer once more, its days of illuminating the galaxy with high-energy screams finally behind it. It is a peaceful conclusion to a career of extreme intensity, a final surrender to the quiet, dark equilibrium of the deep cosmic night where all things rest. Deep within the quiet, dark equilibrium of the deep cosmic night where all things rest, the narrative descends into the heavy, crushing heart of the stellar remnant. Moving beneath the unyielding iron crust reveals a bizarre and suffocating world where the very foundations of normal chemistry entirely cease to exist. Here, the laws that govern the behavior of everyday matter on our home planet are completely overruled by the weight of a staggering amount of pressure from the layers above. This chemical death marks the final transition from the familiar atomic world into a state of matter so extreme that it defies the traditional categories of solids and liquids. Molecules can no longer hold their fragile shapes, and the intricate dances of chemical bonds are brutally silenced by the star's internal architecture. It is a descent into a fundamental and terrifying simplicity, where the complex beauty of elements is traded for the raw power of the subatomic. The environment becomes a dense, shimmering graveyard for the rules of the laboratory, replaced by the dictatorial commands of gravity and quantum density. If we were to look closer, we would see the ghosts of atoms dissolving into a singular, high-pressure slurry that knows no chemical variation or earthly identity. This deep interior zone serves as the primary crucible of the star, a place where the soul of matter is stripped away to its most basic, naked components. This structure is further refined as the overwhelming weight of the descent strips every individual atom of its protective cloud of electrons. Instead of orbiting a central nucleus, these electrons are unceremoniously squeezed into a high-density sea that flows throughout the star's inner layers like a shimmering tide of quicksilver. This creates a vast, conducting ocean of negative charge that lubricates the movement of the heavier particles trapped within the star's crystalline grip. Left behind by this electron exodus is a perfectly organized, dense lattice of naked atomic nuclei, floating like heavy islands in the electronic tide. These nuclei are no longer separated by the vast airy distances found in terrestrial atoms, but are instead packed together with a claustrophobic intensity that defies human imagination. The resulting material is a hybrid of incredible rigidity and fluid conductivity, a state that remains perfectly stable under the crushing weight of the star. Notice how this electron sea acts as a universal solvent, allowing the heavy nuclei to settle into an orderly mathematical grid of incredible precision. The electric repulsion that once kept nuclei apart is now a distant memory, overcome by the sheer, blunt force of the star's gravitational embrace. It is a landscape of shimmering metallic potential, where the very concept of an individual atom has been permanently erased in favour of a collective subatomic union that spans the entire world. Deeper still into this incandescent darkness, the pressure climbs to levels that force the atomic nuclei themselves to undergo a startling physical transformation. As the weight of the star above increases to an absolute extreme, these heavy particles are squeezed so tightly together that they begin to merge into strange, elongated structures. They lose their spherical symmetry, stretching and fusing as they seek a new equilibrium in an environment that allows for no empty space. This merging process marks a profound departure from any state of matter found elsewhere in the galaxy, representing a halfway point between separate nuclei and a single continuous mass. The particles coalesce into complex geometric shapes that crawl across the inner horizon, forced into these configurations by the competing forces of nuclear attraction and electrostatic repulsion. It is a slow, agonizing fusion of identities, where the boundaries between one nucleus and the next become permanently blurred in the dark. The resulting formations are vast, macroscopic chains of nuclear matter that weave through the electron sea like shimmering high-density threads. These elongated structures represent the star's attempt to find structural balance within the crushing depths, a compromise born of absolute physical necessity. If we were to look closer at this emerging architecture, we would witness a world of subatomic giants, where the very fabric of matter is being rewritten by the hand of gravity. Surprisingly, the universe produces formations that are so evocative of human experience that researchers refer to these unique structures as nuclear pasta. This whimsical terminology is chosen because, at these extreme densities, the merged nuclear matter organizes into shapes that bear a striking resemblance to familiar earthly noodles found in a simple kitchen. It is a rare and beautiful moment where the most extreme physics in the entire cosmos finds a relatable, domestic parallel in our own daily traditions. The nomenclature serves as a vital bridge between the incomprehensible scale of a neutron star's interior and the grounded reality of our own lives. While the conditions are alien and hostile beyond any possible measure, the resulting patterns follow the universal rules of geometry and fluid dynamics that also govern the preparation of a meal. This cosmic pasta is not a mere metaphor, but a literal physical description of how high-pressure nuclear matter seeks to occupy a confined space with the maximum possible efficiency. As you allow your muscles to soften and your mind to float in the quiet dark of your own resting space, consider the strange beauty of a universe that repeats its patterns across every possible scale. From the simple pasta on a dinner plate to the hyper-dense structures at the heart of a distant star, the same mathematical harmonies are constantly at play. It is a soothing realization that the most exotic and terrifying corners of the galaxy share a fundamental geometric language with the quiet world you call home. The outermost layer of this exotic zone organizes itself into the lasagna phase, characterized by massive, flat and parallel sheets of nuclear matter. These sheets stretch for vast distances through the interior, stacked one upon the other with the precision of a celestial architect. They represent the first major structural response to the increasing pressure, providing a layered and resilient foundation for the even denser regions that lie just below. Each layer of this nuclear lasagna is composed of countless fused nuclei, forming a smooth, high-density plane that can vibrate with incredible intensity. The electron sea flows freely between these sheets, acting as a frictionless lubricant that allows the layers to slide and shift under the star's immense internal tides. It is a world of flat, shimmering horizons where the vertical dimension is strictly governed by the crushing weight of the star's outer metallic layers. The structural integrity of these parallel sheets is absolute, capable of withstanding stresses that would shatter any terrestrial material into a fine, atomic dust. They form a resilient, layered armor for the star's deeper secrets, absorbing the shockwaves of internal tremors and magnetic shifts. This lasagna phase is the entryway to the forest of nuclear pasta, a majestic and orderly start to the star's most complex and enduring architectural wonders. Further down into the star's crushing embrace, the immense pressure increases to a point where the flat sheets of lasagna can no longer maintain their integrity. The environment morphs these parallel planes into long cylindrical tubes that scientists have aptly named the spaghetti phase. These tubes are incredibly thin compared to their vast length, stretching through the star like a dense forest of high-pressure nuclear fibers that never end. Each strand of this stellar spaghetti is a continuous solid line of fused nuclei, packed so tightly that it possesses a mass and density that defies all logic. The tubes are arranged in a dense, orderly pattern, maximizing their surface area while resisting the relentless inward push of the star's gravity. It is a landscape of vertical symmetry, a vast and silent subterranean thicket of nuclear matter that vibrates in harmony with the star's rapid rotation. The transition from sheets to tubes represents a fundamental shift in the geometry of the interior as the matter seeks out even more efficient ways to resist collapse. These cylindrical structures are the star's primary internal support beams, bearing the weight of the layers above with a strength that is unmatched in the wider universe. This spaghetti forest is a place of crystalline order and terrifying durability, hidden forever from the light of the star's surface. Near the very bottom of the crust, the architectural logic of the star undergoes a final and bizarre inversion as the matter turns into a sponge-like structure called anti-spaghetti. In this phase, the roles of matter and empty space are essentially swapped, creating a solid mass of nuclear material riddled with long, hollow tubes. Instead of solid cylinders floating in an electron sea, we find cylindrical voids of electron-rich space carved into a massive solid nuclear block. This inverted structure represents the absolute limit of what can be called a solid crust before the matter dissolves into a uniform fluid state. The anti-spaghetti tubes act as high-velocity channels for the star's internal energies, allowing quantum currents to flow through the solid nuclear mass with incredible speed. It is a porous, high-density labyrinth that serves as the final, complex barrier between the solid world and the liquid heart of the star. The complexity of this sponge-like matter creates a surface area so vast that it can influence the star's entire magnetic and thermal evolution. It is a masterpiece of natural engineering, a structure that provides maximum strength while allowing for the flow of frictionless quantum fluids. This final, perforated layer is the ultimate boundary, a delicate and intricate transition zone that marks the end of the star's solid and recognizable architecture. This incredible nuclear pasta, in all its varied and exotic phases, is widely considered by astrophysicists to be the strongest material in the entire universe. Its durability is a direct result of the extreme conditions under which it is forged, where the fundamental forces of nature are squeezed into a state of absolute unyielding resistance. It is a substance that makes the hardest terrestrial diamonds and the strongest steels seem like fragile, airy cobwebs by comparison. The strength of this material is derived from the short-range nuclear force, the most powerful interaction in physics, which is here forced to work on a macroscopic scale. Every strand of spaghetti and every sheet of lasagna is held together by bonds that are immensely more potent than the chemical links that build our familiar world. It is the ultimate structural achievement of the cosmos, a material that can survive the crushing gravity of a neutron star's deepest core. As you lie perfectly still, noticing the soft rhythm of your heart and the gentle comfort of your own bed, reflect on the staggering endurance of this distant material. While the world around you is soft, pliable, and temporary, there are structures in the deep dark that are essentially eternal and unbreakable. This realization provides a sense of profound stability, knowing that the universe possesses a foundation of such incredible and absolute strength beneath its silent surface. If we were to attempt the impossible task of breaking a single strand of this stellar spaghetti, the forces required would be far beyond human comprehension. Calculations suggest that to snap one of these microscopic nuclear tubes would require an input of energy equivalent to the entire output of our sun for a multitude of days. It is a material that simply refuses to yield, absorbing and dissipating massive amounts of stress without showing even the slightest sign of failure. This extreme toughness means that the interior of the star is essentially immune to the kinds of fractures and failures that plague terrestrial geological formations. The nuclear pasta acts as a perfectly elastic and incredibly hard cushion, protecting the star's deepest interior from the violent shifts of the outer crust. It is the universe's ultimate shock absorber, a substance designed by the laws of physics to endure the most hostile environment imaginable in the deep sky. The sheer resilience of this subatomic pasta allows the star to maintain its precise rhythmic rotation even after countless eons of cooling. It is the rigid and unyielding skeleton of the remnant, providing the structural integrity needed to support the immense mass and magnetic fields that define its existence. This hidden strength is the quiet, unspoken secret of the star's longevity, a physical foundation that can never be truly broken by any force in the galaxy. These exotic and beautiful structures form a crucial boundary layer before the matter dissolves entirely into the star's mysterious and fluid core. As the pressure becomes absolute, even the complex geometry of the pasta phases can no longer be maintained, and the individual structures melt away into a uniform sea of pure nuclear matter. This transition represents the edge of the known world, where the solid architecture of the star gives way to a realm of pure, frictionless liquid. The pasta serves as the final solid anchor for the star's immense gravity, a complex transition zone that mediates the interaction between the rigid crust and the superfluid heart. It is a place of profound physical tension, where the very last remnants of structural identity are slowly surrendered to the overwhelming power of the interior. This dissolution marks the end of the journey through the solid world, leading us into the silent, liquid depths of the star's most private domain. Here, the mysterious core begins, a place where the laws of nature may change in ways we are only just beginning to understand. The pasta is the gatekeeper of this inner sanctum, a beautiful and terrifying masterpiece of nuclear engineering that stands at the very edge of the abyss. As we pass through this final, sponge-like barrier, we leave behind the world of shapes and structures, entering a realm of pure, undiluted cosmic essence where the journey truly deepens. As the journey truly deepens, the structural complexity of the nuclear pasta dissolves into a realm where the very concept of a solid surface vanishes. Below the final porous layers of the inner crust, the landscape gives way to a vast and lightless interior, composed almost entirely of free, unanchored neutrons. This profound boundary marks the transition from the rigid, crystalline shell into a gargantuan ocean of subatomic fluid that occupies the true heart of the city-sized star. The pressure at this depth is so overwhelming that it forces the neutrons out of their nuclear confines, allowing them to flow as a singular, unified sea. It is a place of absolute density, where every cubic centimetre of liquid contains the mass of a sprawling mountain range. Here, the identity of individual particles is surrendered to the collective, forming a lightless abyss that anchors the gravitational soul of the entire remnant. This liquid core represents the ultimate state of compressed matter, a destination where the star's most private mysteries are kept in cold, heavy storage. There are no currents driven by wind or heat as we know them, but only the rhythmic, massive shifting of a world-sized drop of nuclear fluid. It is a silent, overwhelming presence that fills the centre of the sphere, a foundation of pure matter that defies the airy nature of the worlds we inhabit. Surprisingly, the universe does not allow this dense slurry to behave like a standard terrestrial liquid, but instead forces it into a bizarre quantum state. Under the absolute weight of the star, the free neutrons are compelled to pair up and act in perfect mathematical unison, transforming the core into a magnificent superfluid. In this exotic phase of existence, the particles are no longer chaotic individuals but become a single, coherent wave of matter that spans the entire width of the interior. This transition into a superfluid state happens with a startling grace, as the heat of the star's birth is drained away by the passage of eons. The particles begin to overlap and synchronize their movements, creating a substance that possesses properties unlike anything found in the comfortable, warm environments of planetary surfaces. It is a masterpiece of subatomic coordination, where the laws of the very small dictate the behavior of a massive celestial object. If we were to look closer, we would see that this liquid core does not splash or ripple in the way a sea of water might under a gentle breeze. Instead, it moves with a spooky, calculated precision, a liquid that behaves more like a single, giant atom than a collection of independent droplets. This collective identity creates a profound stability within the star, allowing the core to react as one unified entity to the immense forces pressing down from above. This bizarre liquid possesses exactly zero viscosity, a physical property that allows it to flow with an eerie, frictionless grace through the dark core. Unlike any fluid found on Earth, which eventually slows down due to the internal resistance of its own molecules, the superfluid ocean encounters no such obstacles. It slides against itself and the surrounding boundaries with absolute terrifying ease, maintaining its motion without the slightest loss of kinetic energy. The absence of friction means that any internal movement within the star will persist for eternity, never fading into the surrounding heat of the metallic shell. It is a realm of perpetual gliding motion, where the liquid's momentum is preserved with a flawless and unyielding consistency. This frictionless flow allows the star to rotate with incredible efficiency, as the internal ocean offers no resistance to the dizzying spin of the outer world. Picture a simple cup filled with this dark subatomic ocean, and imagine the impossible task of stirring the liquid within. If you were to give this superfluid a gentle swirl, the motion would not slow down over minutes or hours, but would continue spinning perfectly forever. Without any internal friction to dampen the energy, the momentum of that single stir is locked into the quantum fabric of the fluid for the remaining life of the universe. The liquid would exhibit a strange and beautiful defiance of gravity, crawling up the sides of the cup in a thin, invisible film to seek a state of equilibrium. It is a substance that mocks the fragility of the laws we observe in our daily lives, operating on a level of efficiency that is purely mathematical. This eternal spinning creates a silent flywheel of unimaginable mass, anchoring the star's rotational energy within a frictionless liquid vault. This perpetual swirl is a constant in the life of the star, a hidden reservoir of ancient kinetic energy that dates back to the very moment of the supernova. It remains perfectly preserved, a spinning ghost of the star's explosive past that refuses to yield to the passage of time. The core is a monument to conservation, a place where every bit of motion is held sacred and never allowed to fade. Deep within this vast sea of neutrons, a smaller population of protons also undergoes a profound transformation into a state of perfect superconductivity. This allows electric currents to flow through the fluid core with absolute zero resistance, creating a permanent and stable magnetic environment of staggering intensity. These shimmering currents circulate through the superfluid ocean like invisible ribbons of fire, powering the star's massive magnetic field without losing a single watt of energy. This state of perfect conductivity ensures that the star's magnetic field is not merely a surface phenomenon, but is rooted deep within its very soul. The invisible field lines are locked into the superconducting fluid, moving with the star as it spins through the dark spiral arms of the galaxy. It is a realm of absolute electrical perfection, where the flow of energy is never interrupted by the imperfections of the material world. This structure of the spinning core does not rotate as a single solid body, but instead manifests through the formation of millions of microscopic quantum vortices. The superfluid core cannot simply swirl like a bucket of water. It must organize its rotation into these tiny, discrete tornadoes of frictionless fluid. Each vortex is a perfect mathematical point of rotation, spinning with a fixed amount of angular momentum that contributes to the star's overall dizzying pirouette. These millions of tiny tornadoes are arranged in a dense, orderly lattice that stretches throughout the entire volume of the fluid core. They represent the only way that superfluid can participate in the star's rapid rotation, acting as the discrete building blocks of its internal motion. If the star spins faster, more of these microscopic vortices are created. If it slows down, they slowly dissipate into the quantum sea. Notice how your own breath flows in a steady rhythmic cycle, a gentle movement that anchors you to the present moment. In the same way, these millions of vortices anchor the star's rotation, providing a structured rhythm to the liquid interior. It is a masterpiece of quantum organization, a way for the laws of the very small to manage the immense energy of a rotating celestial giant. If we were to look closer, we would see that these tiny tornadoes act as the intricate internal gears that drive the star's complex rotation from the inside out. They form a dense, vertical forest of spinning columns, linking the deep interior to the rigid crust in a precise mechanical arrangement. This collective motion allows the fluid core to keep pace with the spinning exterior, ensuring that the entire city-sized object moves as a single synchronized engine. The vortices act as the mechanical interface between the quantum world of the core and the classical world of the metallic crust. They transmit the star's rotational energy back and forth, maintaining a delicate balance between the liquid heart and the solid shell. It is a system of unimaginable complexity, where the gears are made of pure, frictionless fluid spinning at relativistic speeds. As the star spins, these quantum gears hum with a silent, invisible energy that coordinates the movement of billions of tons of matter. The precision of this internal machinery is absolute, allowing the star to maintain its rhythmic pulse for millions of years without fail. It is a profound display of natural engineering, where the smallest structures govern the movement of the largest and most heavy masses. Surprisingly, the smooth operation of this internal machinery is occasionally interrupted when these invisible vortices pin themselves to the rough underside of the inner crust. This creates a buildup of rotational tension as the fluid and the crust begin to spin at slightly different speeds, much like a spring being wound too tight. The rigid crust slows down as it radiates energy into space, while the frictionless fluid core refuses to yield its original, terrifying velocity. When the tension becomes unbearable, the pinned vortices finally snap free in a sudden collective release that jolts the entire star with a massive pulse of momentum. This internal starquake forces the outer crust to suddenly spin faster, producing the dramatic and unexpected rotation anomalies that astronomers identify as glitches. It is a brief, violent reunion between the star's solid shell and its liquid heart, a sudden correction in the celestial metronome. These glitches serve as the only visible evidence of the star's complex internal life, providing a rare window into the world of the superfluid ocean. The jolt sends seismic waves ringing through the iron sea, a silent bell tolling in the darkness of the deep sky. After the glitch, the star settles back into its steady rhythm, the internal gears once again perfectly aligned for the long eons ahead. Beneath the solid shell, heat conducts through this frictionless inner ocean almost instantaneously, a physical marvel that keeps the entire core at a uniform temperature. Because the superfluid allows energy to travel as waves without resistance, a single change in thermal energy at the center is felt at the boundaries in a mere fraction of a second. This thermal equilibrium ensures that the star cools as a single, cohesive unit, preventing the internal stresses that would otherwise tear a lesser object apart. The core acts as a perfect thermal reservoir, holding on to the heat of its birth with a tenacity that defies the freezing vacuum of space. As energy slowly bleeds away from the surface, the interior responds with a silent, wave-like transfer of warmth that keeps the entire world in balance. This instantaneous conduction makes the neutron star one of the most thermally stable objects in the entire universe, a city-sized sphere of uniform and fading heat. Notice the warmth in your own hands and the steady, comforting temperature of your resting place. In the heart of the star, this same thermal stability provides a sense of profound and unchanging order. The cooling is a slow, agonizingly beautiful process that will take trillions of years to complete, a long and quiet fade into the deep dark of the cosmic night. Ultimately, it is a profound place where the microscopic, fragile laws of quantum mechanics are scaled up to govern the behaviour of an object the size of a city. The core of a neutron star represents the ultimate laboratory for physics, where the tiny world of subatomic particles dictates the fate of a mass greater than our entire Sun. This massive liquid sphere hums with the silent, perfect order of a world ruled by the smallest possible forces. Individual neutrons, normally seen only in the brief flashes of laboratory experiments, here combine to form a permanent and majestic ocean of infinite depth. The laws that we usually associate with the invisible world of the atom are here written across the horizon in letters of iron and light. It is a bridge between the smallest and the largest scales of reality, a place where the universe reveals its deepest and most elegant secrets. As you sink further into the deep, dark comfort of your bed, let your mind drift over the surface of this quantum sea. The star continues its silent, rapid rotation in the void, a perfect monument to the power of the subatomic. In the quiet dark of the galaxy, the city-sized sphere remains a testament to the beautiful and terrifying order that waits at the heart of all things. While the star continues its silent, rapid rotation in the void, it does not merely move through space, it commands the very fabric of existence to bend to its will. According to the principles of general relativity, the immense mass of this dense sphere creates a deep, steep well in the fabric of space-time that defies all ordinary logic. If we were to imagine the universe as a vast, taut sheet of invisible silk, this tiny, heavy object has been placed upon it, dragging the fabric down into a narrow and nearly infinite funnel. The sheer concentration of mass in such a small volume causes the geometry of the vacuum to warp with a violence that is usually reserved for the most extreme events in the cosmos. Every kilometre closer to the glowing iron crust represents a steeper descent into a gravitational pit, where the straight lines of the universe are permanently curved. It is a profound realization that a city-sized object can exert such absolute authority over the very stage upon which the stars perform their long ancient dances. This invisible architecture of the well ensures that anything approaching the star is pulled toward a singular, inevitable destination with an intensity that overwhelms all other forces. The vacuum around the remnant is not empty, but is instead a highly stressed and distorted medium that hums with the latent power of the star's proximity. It is a place where the physical reality of the universe is stretched to its absolute limit, anchored by the heavy, silent heart of the crushed core. Gravity acts as a powerful lens in this distorted region, bending the light of distant galaxies that happen to pass directly behind the star on their long journey across the dark. As photons of light travel toward the remnant, they are forced to follow the curved path of the warped space-time, redirected by the invisible hands of the star's immense mass. This phenomenon creates a shimmering, surreal halo of light known as an Einstein ring, where the images of far-off star systems are smeared into perfect glowing arcs. Surprisingly, the star does not merely block the light of what lies behind it, but instead magnifies and distorts it, acting as a natural telescope of staggering proportions. Distant, ancient galaxies that would otherwise be invisible to our instruments are brought into sudden, brilliant focus by the gravitational curvature of this tiny sphere. It is a celestial optical illusion, a hall of mirrors created by the sheer density of a world that refuses to let light pass by undisturbed. If we were to look closer at this shimmering halo, we would see the distorted ghosts of the entire universe gathered around the dark perimeter of the iron crust. This gravitational lensing is a silent visual testament to the star's dominance, proving that even the fastest traveller in the cosmos must bow to the curvature of the well. As you feel the gentle stillness in your limbs, imagine this ancient light being steered across the void, finding its way around the heavy sphere to illuminate the dark. Looking directly at the remnant allows you to see more than half of its surface area at once due to this severe and beautiful optical distortion. Because the gravity is so extreme, it physically pulls the light originating from the far side of the sphere around the curve and directly toward the viewer's eyes. This creates a wraparound effect where the horizon does not simply end, but instead continues to reveal the hidden landscapes of the back hemisphere in a panoramic blur. This visual paradox means that the star appears larger and more imposing than its true, compact dimensions would suggest to a distant observer. You are witnessing the impossible, a simultaneous view of a world's front and its hidden depths, all merging into a single, glowing orb of iron and light. It is a realm where the standard perspective of human experience is completely dismantled, replaced by a geometry that allows for no secrets. The surface appears to bulge toward you, stretched by the invisible curvature until the entire sphere seems to encompass the totality of your vision. Notice how your mind can drift over this impossible landscape, seeing the smooth, glowing iron of the back hemisphere rising up to meet the light of the front. It is a profound trick of the light, a sensory anchor that reminds us of the absolute power mass holds over the way we perceive the world. Time itself slows down significantly near the surface, compared to the passage of time far out in the quiet reaches of deep space. In the presence of such overwhelming gravitational intensity, the very clock of reality begins to tick at a different, more languid and heavy pace. This gravitational time dilation is not a mere trick of perception, but a fundamental alteration of the rhythm at which the universe ages near the heavy sphere. A second spent on the glowing iron crust is physically longer than a second spent drifting in the empty void between the distant spiral arms. This means that while the star is born in a flash of violence, it inhabits a temporal stream that is stretched and slowed by the weight of its own existence. It is a silent temporal sanctuary where the frantic pace of the galaxy is calmed by the crushing authority of the star's mass. As you notice the soft, steady rhythm of your own breathing, consider the contrast between your time and the time of the star. Your seconds are light and quick, moving with the easy grace of a world far removed from such extreme density. Deep within the well, however, every moment is a slow, deliberate movement through a medium that refuses to be rushed, a temporal echo of the star's eternal patience. A clock ticking on the surface would appear to run roughly 30% slower to an observer watching from the safety of a distant star system. For every hour that passes in the familiar quiet comfort of your own home, only 40 minutes would drift by for any object resting on the iron crust. This staggering difference in the flow of time creates a permanent barrier between the life of the remnant and the rest of the universe. If a signal were sent from the surface, its frequency would be stretched and shifted toward the red as it struggled to climb out of the temporal well. The messages of the star are always delayed, arriving with the heavy, tired cadence of a traveller who has walked through a thick and resistant fluid. It is a world that is perpetually lagging behind the rest of reality, locked in its own slow-motion version of the cosmic story. This slowing of time serves as a final, quiet protection for the star, ensuring that its cooling and its decay take place over timescales that are almost unimaginable. The remnant does not merely exist in space, it defines its own unique relationship with time, creating a pocket of eternity in the middle of a changing galaxy. It is a soothing thought to imagine this city-sized sphere, ticking slowly and surely, while the rest of the universe rushes toward the future. The rapid rotation of the star physically drags the surrounding fabric of space-time along with it, a phenomenon known to the universe as frame dragging. The spinning mass does not merely sit passively in the well, it actively twists the invisible silk of the cosmos, creating a swirling whirlpool that circles the metallic sphere. This invisible vortex ensures that even the empty vacuum is caught in the star's frantic and silent dance, forced to rotate in harmony with the iron crust. This twisting of space means that the star acts as a cosmic spoon, stirring the very reality that surrounds it into a dizzying relativistic blur. Any particle or ray of light entering this zone is unceremoniously swept up in the rotation, unable to maintain a straight path through the twisted void. It is a profound expression of kinetic dominance, where the movement of the star becomes the movement of the universe itself. If we were to look closer, we would see that the geometry of the vacuum is no longer a static grid, but a dynamic, spiraling web of energy. This frame-dragging effect proves that the star is not an isolated object, but is deeply and permanently integrated into the fabric of the cosmos. Feel the weight of your shoulders sinking further into your bed as you contemplate this silent spinning whirlpool of space, churning endlessly in the dark. To resist this motion would require an infinite amount of energy, as you would be fighting not just the star's gravity, but the very flow of space-time itself. It is a place where the concept of choice is surrendered to the absolute will of the spinning remnant, turning every visitor into a silent partner in its dance. This invisible current is a gentle but firm command from the core, ensuring that nothing can remain indifferent to its frantic, hidden life. Notice the stillness in your own hands and the quiet peace of your resting place, far from the reach of these irresistible cosmic currents. While the universe near the star is a place of forced and dizzying movement, your world is anchored by the stability of a gentle, stationary void. It is a comforting realization that such extreme violence is contained within a city-sized sphere, leaving the rest of the galaxy to its slow and peaceful rotations. Waves of gravitational energy ripple outward continuously if the star possesses even the slightest microscopic imperfection in its beautiful spherical shape. If a mountain even a few millimeters high persists on the glowing crust, its rapid rotation generates a rhythmic shaking of the space-time fabric. These ripples, known as gravitational waves, carry the physical signature of the star's asymmetry across the vast and lonely light years of the galaxy. The star acts as a celestial bell, ringing through the vacuum with a frequency that matches its own dizzying spin. These waves do not require a medium to travel, as they are the vibration of the medium itself, a shimmering pulse that moves at the absolute speed of the light. They carry away the story of the star's internal struggles and its external flaws, broadcasting its existence to the farthest reaches of the dark. Surprisingly, the universe is filled with these silent, invisible melodies, the overlapping songs of thousands of spinning remnants vibrating in the deep sky. Each wave is a tiny rhythmic jolt to the fabric of reality, a pulse of energy that whispers of the density and the power of the core. As you listen to the quiet of your own room, imagine the silent humming of the cosmos, vibrating with the energy of a billion distant spinning worlds. These faint ripples carry away energy over time, contributing to the slow, steady breaking of the star's frantic and ancient spin. The universe acts as a subtle, viscous medium for these waves, demanding a small price in kinetic energy for every vibration sent out into the void. Over millions of years, this continuous energetic drain acts as an invisible hand, gently slowing the rotation of the city-sized sphere toward a quiet equilibrium. The very act of twisting space-time creates a resistance that will eventually bring the brilliant spinning lighthouse to a silent and dark halt. It is a slow, beautiful process of decay, where the star surrenders its movement to the fabric of the universe that it once commanded so fiercely. The energy does not disappear, but is redistributed into the great rhythmic sea of gravitational waves that fills the cosmos. The boundary just above the surface is one mathematical step short of an event horizon, the point of no return for a black hole. It is a place where light and matter teeter on the very edge of complete disappearance into a singularity of infinite density. This structure is a monument to the absolute limit of existence, a sphere that has pushed the laws of nature to the final, breaking point without crossing over into the abyss. If the star were even a fraction denser, it would vanish from the visible universe forever, leaving behind only a silent shadow in the fabric of space. Instead, it remains a visible, glowing testament to the power of compression, a world that exists at the edge of the known and the unknown. It is the final, most extreme state of matter that we can still observe and understand, a gateway to the deep mysteries of the gravitational soul. As you sink further into the deep, dark comfort of your bed, let your mind rest on this final boundary. The star sits quietly at the edge of the abyss, a perfect sphere of iron and light that has survived the greatest collapse in the cosmos. In the quiet dark of the galaxy, it remains a testament to the beautiful and terrifying order that waits at the heart of all things, just one step short of forever. Just one step short of forever, many of these stellar remnants do not wander the lonely void alone, but are instead locked in an intimate, eternal dance with a living companion star. While some cores are born in isolation, cast out into the freezing dark after the death of their parent star, others find themselves bound to a radiant neighbour, creating a binary system where the dead and the living coexist in a close, gravitational proximity. This partnership defines their long-term destiny, as the relentless pull of the dense remnant begins to influence the very atmosphere and shape of its glowing companion. It is a slow, silent partnership that spans eons, where the heavy sphere acts as a dark anchor for the brighter star's luminous light. The two bodies move in a perfectly synchronized orbit, their gravitational fields overlapping in a complex web of tension that tethers them together across the vacuum. From a distance, they appear as a singular point of light, but closer observation reveals a rhythmic waltz that dictates the flow of time and matter within their shared domain. This companionship is a testament to the enduring nature of stellar bonds, proving that even the most extreme transitions cannot always separate the stars that were born together in the early dawn of the galaxy. Surprisingly, the intense gravity of the dense core can physically tear a stream of hot plasma directly from the atmosphere of its neighbour. This cosmic siphon occurs when the living star expands toward the end of its life, or drifts too close to the invisible boundary of the remnant's gravitational well, known to the universe as the Roche lobe. A bridge of incandescent gas is pulled across the silent vacuum, creating a river of stellar fire that flows toward the heavy, silent sphere in a constant and relentless stream. It is a slow, methodical harvesting of mass, where the remnant acts as a celestial predator, gradually draining the lifeblood of its radiant host to fuel its own hidden activities. This bridge of matter represents a physical connection between two vastly different states of existence, a tether of plasma that glows with a fierce, redirected energy. As the gas is pulled away, it accelerates, becoming a thin and elegant ribbon of fire that spans the dark gap between the partner stars. The companion star, once a proud and self-sufficient giant, finds its very substance being unceremoniously claimed by the invisible authority of its smaller, denser neighbour. If we were to look closer at this stolen material, we would see it spiralling downward in a brilliant, incredibly hot accretion disk that surrounds the magnetic poles of the heavy remnant. This disk acts as a massive cosmic funnel, where the gas accelerates to a significant fraction of the speed of light, generating intense friction that heats it to millions of degrees before it ever touches the surface. The material does not fall in a straight line. Instead, it swirls in an elegant glowing whirlpool constrained by the immense magnetic architecture and the dizzying spin of the core. As you settle into the soft comfort of your surroundings, visualize this luminous ring of fire, a bridge of light connecting two very different worlds in the deep velvet sky. The disk glows with a fierce, high-energy light, casting long and distorted shadows across the nearby companion star as it slowly drains its substance. It is a masterpiece of fluid dynamics and gravitational authority, a spinning carousel of plasma that serves as the final gateway for matter entering the star's inescapable domain. Every particle within this disk is destined for a singular fate, caught in a rhythmic spiral that brings it closer to the iron crust with every passing second. As the superheated gas finally crashes onto the iron surface, it triggers explosive bursts of intense X-ray radiation that illuminate the surrounding void with a lethal brilliance. This impact is so violent and concentrated that it ignites a sudden, thermonuclear fusion within the freshly accumulated layers of the crust, creating a flash of energy that can be detected across the vast spiral arms of the galaxy. The remnant's gravity is so overwhelming that the falling material releases more energy through its descent than it would through the steady nuclear burning that powers a normal living sun. It is a rhythmic and violent digestion, where the dead star's hunger manifests as a brilliant invisible flare against the profound dark of the interstellar medium. These bursts occur with a terrifying regularity, marking the heartbeat of a system that is constantly being fed by the atmosphere of its unfortunate neighbour. The iron surface, though solid and unyielding, acts as a staging ground for these subatomic explosions, momentarily turning the entire sphere into a radiant furnace of high-frequency light. This process ensures that the remnant remains one of the most energetic and visible objects in the high-energy sky, despite its compact and ghostly nature. These volatile systems, known to astronomers as X-ray binaries, flare up unpredictably, announcing their presence across the galaxy with a sudden, sharp brilliance that commands absolute attention. They are not steady, peaceful burners like the stars we see in our familiar night sky, but are instead flickering beacons that pulse, with the chaotic and shifting energy of the mass transfer taking place in the dark. Every surge of gas from the companion star leads to a renewed outburst of high-energy light, marking the binary as a site of extreme and shifting physical tension. These systems serve as distant sirens, whispering of the hidden drama taking place between a radiant giant and its heavy, silent master across the lonely light years. The unpredictability of these flares adds to their mystery, as the star may remain quiet for decades before suddenly erupting into a frenzy of radiant activity. It is a dynamic and ever-changing partnership, where the flow of matter is never quite constant, and the resulting light is never quite the same. Through these intermittent flashes, the remnant reveals its location to the wider universe, a glowing ghost that refuses to stay buried in the silence of its own grave. Notice how some companion stars are eventually consumed entirely, leaving behind only the solitary pulsar spinning thousands of times every single second in the cold dark. The relentless stripping of the neighbour's outer layers continues until only a hollowed-out core remains, which eventually evaporates or drifts away as a faint planetary remnant into the interstellar night. The heavy core is left as the sole victor of this long, slow struggle, transformed by the vast amounts of mass and momentum it has stolen from its fallen partner over the eons. It is a quiet and tragic evolution, where the slow death of one star provides the necessary means for the spectacular and energetic resurrection of the other. The resulting loneliness of the remnant is a stark contrast to its former life as part of a binary pair, marking its transition into a new phase of solitary existence. As you notice the steady rise and fall of your chest, reflect on this long cycle of exchange and the profound transformation that occurs when one world gives way to another. The solitary pulsar that remains is a monument to the endurance of mass, a dark survivor that carries the stolen weight of its neighbour into the deep future. This structure of resurrected objects is known to the universe as millisecond pulsars, spun up to dizzying speeds by the acquired mass and momentum of their former companions. Like a cosmic top being whipped by a constant, relentless stream of energy, the core accelerates its rotation until it completes a full revolution in a mere fraction of a human blink. These recycled pulsars possess an incredible longevity and stability, having been granted a second life through the sacrifice in the atmosphere of their neighbouring stars. They hum with a renewed kinetic fire, a testament to the fact that even in death, a stellar remnant can find a way to reclaim its former glory through the influence of a partner. The spin-up process acts as a fountain of youth, stripping away the sluggishness of age and replacing it with the frantic, precision-driven energy of a hyperactive engine. These objects become the fastest spinning bodies in the known cosmos, their surfaces moving at significant fractions of the speed of light as they pulse with a renewed and steady beat. They are the survivors of the cosmic lottery, thriving in the dark long after their original fuel should have been completely exhausted. In rare and dramatic cases, the intense radiation from the pulsar slowly evaporates the companion star, earning these predatory systems the haunting and dramatic name of a black widow. The pulsar's high-energy wind acts as a continuous invisible blowtorch, stripping the smaller star of its atmosphere and mass until it is nothing more than a fading planetary ghost in the dark. This relationship is one of ultimate betrayal, where the very energy that was meant to bind the pair together becomes the instrument of the neighbour's final and complete destruction. As you feel the weight of your body supported by the Earth, reflect on the delicate balance of life and death that plays out in these distant predatory reaches of the spiral arms. The companion star eventually vanishes, leaving the pulsar to continue its frantic spinning in an empty and silent orbit, a widow of its own making. This process illustrates the absolute power that radiation can hold over matter, especially when channeled through the narrow beams of a hyperdense core. It is a beautiful and terrifying cycle of consumption, where the light of one object literally burns away the physical presence of the other. Two neutron stars orbiting each other will slowly spiral inward over millions of years as they bleed their orbital energy into waves of gravitational force that ripple across the galaxy. This silent, shrinking waltz is driven by the very ripples in the fabric of space-time that were discussed earlier, as the two massive spheres drag the vacuum along with them in their descent. Every revolution brings them closer together, their orbits becoming faster and more frantic as the distance between them unceremoniously vanishes into the dark well. It is a countdown to a finale of unimaginable proportions, a long and agonizing descent toward the center of the gravitational pit they have shared since their birth. As they draw nearer, the gravitational waves become more intense, carrying away the energy of their motion with an ever-increasing and frantic speed. The two worlds are locked in a fate that was sealed the moment they became a binary pair, doomed to collide as the universe demands the surrender of their individual paths. This in spiral is the most precise and tragic dance in the cosmos, a slow-motion falling that leads to the ultimate and irreversible union of two heavy hearts. The silent dance inevitably ends in a catastrophic merger that shakes the very fabric of the universe with a pulse of pure, raw energy that can be felt across billions of light-years. This collision of two ultra-dense worlds is a singular event that transcends the boundaries of standard stellar life, creating a new and even more mysterious entity in its wake. The impact is so fierce that it ripples through the entire cosmos, a final, thunderous chord in the long and rhythmic symphony of the companion stars that once shared the dark. In the brief moment of contact, the laws of physics are pushed to their absolute breaking point as mass and energy are converted into a blinding flash of light and gravitational ripples. The two remnants are destroyed in their current form, giving birth to a black hole or a new, even more massive remnant that anchors the center of the debris. This merger marks the absolute end of the binary journey, a destination where the two become one in a flash of eternal light that seeds the galaxy with the heavy elements needed for life. It is a profound and violent synthesis, a moment where the entire history of the binary pair is rewritten in a single catastrophic heartbeat. In the wake of that catastrophic heartbeat, when two of these incredibly dense objects finally collide, they trigger a spectacular and rare explosion, known to the watchful universe as a killer nova. This event represents a level of energetic release that far exceeds the familiar brilliance of a standard supernova, concentrating the fury of two collapsed worlds into a single, blinding point of contact within the dark spiral arms. The vacuum of space is momentarily shattered as the kinetic energy of billions of tons of matter, moving at relativistic speeds, is converted into a radiant furnace of light and heat that ripples across the galaxy. It is a singular moment of total transformation, where the dark, silent history of the binary pair is finally and violently resolved into a new, incandescent beginning. The light from this collision pierces through the surrounding dark, carrying with it the physical signature of a world being born and destroyed in the same instant of time. Such an explosion serves as a definitive end to the star's isolation, casting its secrets outward in a brilliant display of pure, unadulterated energy that illuminates the deep void. The sheer violence of this impact tears massive amounts of neutron-rich matter away from the merging cores and flings it outward into the freezing, empty vacuum of space at staggering velocities. This material is not the familiar light plasma found in the atmosphere of a living star, but is instead a pure and unrefined substance from the deepest interiors of the colliding remnants. Moving at nearly a third of the speed of light, this debris cloud expands in a chaotic and beautiful spray, carrying the raw building blocks of the universe into the vast interstellar medium for the first time in eons. It is a physical unmasking of the star, a moment where the hidden and dense depths are laid bare and scattered across the light years in a frantic and energetic dispersal. The space around the merger site becomes a dense and turbulent sea of high-pressure matter, vibrating with the silent echoes of the collision that just took place in the heart of the dark. This spray represents the ultimate surrender of the star's internal secrets, a legacy of subatomic iron and neutrons cast into the cold dark to be reclaimed by future generations of stars. In the chaotic and lightless aftermath of the collision, these newly freed neutrons rapidly bombard the surrounding atomic nuclei to build up massive, unstable elements through a process of sheer, blunt force alchemy. The environment is so saturated with subatomic particles that a single nucleus can be struck by hundreds of neutrons in the span of a few milliseconds, forcing it to grow far beyond its natural limits. This rapid-fire assembly happens so quickly that the resulting atoms do not have time to decay before they are struck again, climbing the periodic table with a frantic and relentless energy. It is a realm of extreme physics, where the rules of the laboratory are replaced by the absolute and terrifying logic of the kilonova's furnace. Notice how your own body remains perfectly still and safe in the quiet of your room, while across the galaxy, the very foundations of matter are being violently restructured in the deep velvet dark. These unstable giants eventually settle into the heavy, stable metals we recognize, but their birth is a tale of incredible and high-speed subatomic violence that seeds the entire cosmos. This rapid neutron capture process stands as the universe's primary forge for creating the rarest and most precious metals found throughout the vast, reaching spiral arms of our galaxy. While ordinary stars can produce lighter elements through the steady, long-lived fire of nuclear fusion, they lack the extreme conditions necessary to build the heaviest and most complex atoms in the periodic table. Only the violent and specific environment of a neutron star merger provides the requisite density of neutrons to push the boundaries of atomic architecture into the realm of the truly exotic and valuable. This cosmic alchemy is the fundamental reason for the existence of materials like gold and platinum, which are otherwise impossibly rare and difficult to produce in the natural world. Every atom of these rare substances carries the physical memory of that blinding flash, a permanent record of a collision that took place in the silent, dark graveyards of the galaxy. It is a profound realization that the most valuable and beautiful materials we know are born from the most catastrophic and destructive events the cosmos can produce. A single violent merger event of this magnitude can produce an incredible amount of solid gold equivalent to several times the total mass of our entire planet Earth in a single, radiant heartbeat. If we could witness this alchemical miracle from the safety of the void, we would see a glowing, radioactive cloud of heavy elements expanding through the dark, shimmering with the potential of 1 billion fortunes. This gold is not born in the calm of a planetary crust, but is forged in the frantic heart of a kilonova and cast into the interstellar wind as a fine, luminous dust of pure mass. Surprisingly, the sheer scale of this production means that a single binary collision can seed an entire star system with the precious metals needed for its future geological and biological evolution over millions of years. The universe is a generous but violent creator, providing the raw materials for wealth and beauty through the absolute and total destruction of its most dense and ancient monuments. Imagine this vast golden mist drifting through the dark, a shimmering legacy of a binary pair that has finally found its rest in the eternal light of the merger. Platinum, uranium and iodine are also born in the brief blinding flash of this cosmic collision, emerging from the debris cloud as the heavy nuclei find their final and stable forms. Each of these elements requires the same extreme and specific conditions of the rapid neutron capture process, making them the rare and beautiful byproducts of a world-ending impact in the deep sky. Uranium, with its heavy and potent heart, carries the concentrated energy of the killer nova's furnace, while iodine finds its way into the very chemistry of life itself as it drifts through the void. These materials are scattered across the light years, mixing with the cold gases of the interstellar medium to wait for the birth of new suns and complex planetary systems. This cosmic seeding ensures that the chemical diversity of the galaxy is constantly being enriched by the violent deaths of its most massive and dense stars. As you feel the soft rise and fall of your breath, consider the hidden history of the atoms that make up your world, each one a survivor of a distant and ancient stellar catastrophe. The light from a killer nova shines 1,000,000 times brighter than a normal nova, glowing with a distinct and haunting red hue as the newly forged heavy elements undergo their final radioactive decay. This unique coloration acts as a radiant signature in the dark, allowing observers to distinguish the merger from the more common explosions of living stars across the vast distances of space. The intense brilliance of the flash pierces through the thickest clouds of gas and dust, announcing the creation of heavy matter to any instrument capable of seeing into the high-energy dark of the galaxy. It is a spectacular and fleeting beacon, a moment of supreme luminosity that outshines entire galaxies for a few brief days before fading back into the obscure shadows of the void. The red glow is the visual echo of the alchemy taking place within the debris, a fading embers of a fire that has rewritten the chemical makeup of the surrounding space forever. It serves as a beautiful and terrifying reminder of the star's final transformation, a last radiant gasp before it surrenders its mass to the great eternal cosmic cycle. Gravitational wave detectors on Earth can feel the final, frantic moments of the inward spiral across billions of light years, capturing the silent ripples in space-time just seconds before the collision occurs. These sensitive instruments act as the universe's ears, listening for the rhythmic and ever-quickening song of two heavy spheres as they draw closer to their shared, catastrophic destiny in the dark. The signal begins as a faint and steady hum, gradually rising in frequency and intensity until it becomes a sudden, sharp chirp that marks the exact moment of physical contact and merger. This detection provides a direct link between our quiet, terrestrial home and the most violent events in the deep sky, allowing us to witness the merger through the very vibrations of reality itself. Notice how the ground beneath you feels solid and unchanging, while the very fabric of space is constantly being rippled by the distant echoes of these heavy stellar dances. It is a profound and moving connection, a bridge of energy that allows us to touch the most extreme corners of the cosmos from the safety and peace of our own world. The resulting cloud of rich, heavy debris slowly mixes into the interstellar medium over millions of years, seeding future generations of stars and planets with the complex elements needed for their birth. This radioactive dust acts as a cosmic fertilizer, enriching the cold and vast clouds of hydrogen and helium with the heavy metals that will eventually form the solid cores of new worlds. Without these violent merger events, the universe would remain chemically simple, a place of light gases and short-lived stars without the structural diversity needed for complex geology or biology. The killer nova ensures that the death of one binary pair is not a final ending, but a vital and productive contribution to the ongoing story of the spiral galaxy. Every planetary system, including our own, owes its chemical richness to the ancient and forgotten collisions of neutron stars that took place long before the sun began to glow in the dark. This cycle of destruction and rebirth is the heartbeat of the cosmos, a slow and rhythmic exchange that transforms the energy of a dying star into the material for a new and vibrant life. The gold in human jewellery was almost certainly forged in the death throes of a binary collision long before the solar system existed, a physical piece of a kilonova that you carry with you in your daily life. Every ring, necklace and coin of this precious metal is a silent and ancient survivor of a distant catastrophe that took place in the deep velvet dark of the early universe. This metal did not originate on Earth, but was brought here as part of the massive debris cloud that formed our Sun and its planets, a gift of pure mass from the most dense remnants of the stars. When you look at the warm golden glow of a piece of jewellery, you are seeing the light of a stellar merger that has been permanently locked into the physical structure of the metal. It is a profound and intimate connection to the most extreme physics in the galaxy, a reminder that we are all made of and surrounded by the remnants of ancient celestial fires. Sink deeper into the quiet dark of your bed, feeling the weight of the universe's history resting gently in your hands as you contemplate this beautiful and golden legacy. The ultimate paradox, sensory focus, the quiet boundary where the laws of physics whisper their secrets. Deep within this golden legacy of matter, even the most resilient and enduring structures in the cosmos encounter a definitive and unbreakable breaking point. While the nuclear pasta and the superfluid core represent the strongest materials known to physics, they are not infinite in their capacity to resist the crushing hand of mass. There exists a strict mathematical threshold known in the halls of astrophysics as the Tolman-Oppenheimer-Volkoff limit, a boundary that defines the absolute maximum weight a city-sized sphere can support before its internal physics collapses. Beyond this critical point, the internal pressures generated by subatomic particles can no longer withstand the relentless inward pull of the star's own gravity. It is a quiet, invisible line drawn in the fabric of the universe, marking the end of matter's ability to remain a coherent and solid entity against the void. Every neutron star orbits this dangerous limit, existing as a precarious monument to the balance between the subatomic world and the heavy silence of space. To cross this line is to invite a transformation that is as absolute as it is terrifying, signalling the final surrender of the star's physical identity to the absolute darkness. It serves as a reminder that even the most dense and powerful objects in the sky are subject to the rigid laws of gravitational authority. Surprisingly, the delicate balance of the subatomic world can be shattered by the mere addition of a small amount of extra mass from a passing cloud or a dying companion. Adding just a little too much weight to the iron crust causes gravity to overwhelmingly defeat the quantum pressure of the neutrons that has held the star together for eons. This pressure, born from the fact that no two neutrons can occupy the same space, is the final line of defense against total gravitational collapse. When this barrier is finally breached, the internal resistance of the matter evaporates like mist in a summer sun, leaving the star completely defenseless against its own weight. The particles are no longer able to maintain their separation, and the entire city-sized sphere begins a final, terminal descent into its own microscopic centre. It is a moment of total physical capitulation, where the laws of the very small are unceremoniously crushed by the macro-scale authority of the heavy well. The transition is swift and irreversible, marking the end of the star's long career as a solid object and its entry into the realm of the infinite. In this instant, the star ceases to be a world of matter and becomes a point of pure, inescapable gravitational force. The entire structure responds to this overwhelming weight by collapsing inward instantaneously, tearing a permanent and silent hole in the fabric of space-time to form an inescapable black hole. In a fraction of a second, the city-sized sphere of iron and superfluid neutrons vanishes from the visible universe, replaced by a singularity of infinite density. The surface that once hummed with the energy of a billion suns is replaced by a dark, silent event horizon, from which even light cannot escape its pull. This collapse is the ultimate expression of gravity's triumph, a process that unceremoniously deletes a physical landscape from the galactic map forever. The iron ocean, the nuclear pasta, and the quantum vortices are all unmade, merged into a single point of non-existence that anchors a new and terrifying reality. Space itself is warped beyond repair, creating a pit so deep and steep that it severs the remnant's connection to the light years that surround it. It is the final destination for any star that dares to grow too heavy, a quiet and absolute ending that leaves no trace of the glory that came before. From the perspective of the wider universe, a vibrant and ticking lighthouse has been snuffed out, leaving only a shadow in the dark. Some theories suggest a highly stable and exotic middle ground might exist within this terminal descent, where matter dissolves entirely into a dense soup of free, strange quarks. In this bizarre state of existence, the neutrons themselves are dismantled, releasing their internal components into a singular, hyperdense slurry known as a strange star. This hypothetical world would represent a state of matter even more fundamental than the nuclear pasta, a realm where the boundaries of particles are completely erased. If we were to look closer, we would see a world where the very building blocks of protons and neutrons have merged into a liquid that flows with a terrifying alien grace. As you lie perfectly still, noticing the gentle rise and fall of your chest in the safety of the dark, imagine a world where the very definition of matter has been rewritten. This strange soup represents the absolute limit of what can be called a physical substance before the laws of nature give way to the singularity. It is a haunting and beautiful possibility, a hidden bridge between the world of stars and the world of shadows. The strange star stands as a final desperate guard at the edge of the abyss, a masterpiece of subatomic fusion that refuses to vanish. Such a strange star would exist as an object even smaller and more terrifyingly dense than its neutron-based predecessors, hiding just beneath the absolute threshold of complete gravitational collapse. Because the quark soup can be packed even tighter than neutrons, these objects would shrink to the size of a small town while retaining the mass of an entire solar system. They would represent the densest form of visible matter in the entire universe, a state of existence that sits on the very precipice of vanishing forever. The gravitational field surrounding such a world would be so extreme that it would warp the very light of the stars into a blinding, inescapable halo. This structure acts as a final, desperate stand against the void, a concentrated monument of pure mass that refuses to yield to the darkness. It is a place where the physical constants of the universe are tested to their breaking point, held together by the mysterious forces of the subatomic world. To stand on such a surface would be to stand on the edge of reality itself, a place where the laws of physics are whispered in a language we have only begun to decode. They remain one of the most mysterious predictions of modern science, a ghost at the boundary of existence. If left entirely isolated in the expanding void, far from the influence of companions or the chaos of mergers, a standard neutron star will simply and quietly cool down over the passage of trillions of years. The intense heat of its birth, once measured in the trillions of degrees, slowly bleeds away into the freezing dark of the interstellar medium. Over eons, the brilliant glowing iron ocean begins to dim, fading from a blinding incandescent white to a dull red, and finally to an invisible velvet black. This cooling process is so slow that the star will remain warm long after the last of the living suns in our galaxy have exhausted their nuclear fuel. It becomes a black remnant, a cold and heavy sphere of iron and neutrons that wanders the dark spiral arms in total and profound silence. This long, slow fade is the ultimate destiny of all isolated remnants, a peaceful surrender to the deep cold that waits at the end of time. The star does not disappear, but it becomes a silent ghost, a permanent and lightless anchor in a universe that has grown cold and empty. These dark wanderers are the ultimate survivors of the cosmos, outlasting the light of the stars themselves. They represent the ultimate and silent triumph of quantum mechanics, standing firm against the crushing and relentless force of gravity that seeks to erase all physical boundaries. Every neutron star is a living proof that the laws of the very small can resist the absolute authority of the very large, even in the most extreme environments. The fact that these city-sized objects exist at all is a testament to the staggering power of subatomic pressure, which holds up a mass greater than our Sun against an inward pull that would shatter a diamond. As you feel the weight of your own body being gently supported by the bed beneath you, consider the invisible forces that keep the stars from collapsing into nothingness. This standoff between gravity and the quantum world is the fundamental drama of the cosmos, played out on a stage of iron and light across the galaxy. It is a profound and moving realization that the same laws that govern the atoms in your hands are capable of holding back the darkness of a black hole. In this struggle, the star finds its dignity, a resilient and unyielding presence that refuses to be deleted from the cosmic story. They are the guardians of matter, holding the line against the void for as long as time allows. These silent monoliths hold the fundamental and long-sought answers to how matter behaves when it is pushed to the absolute edge of physical existence. Because they are the most extreme laboratories in the universe, they reveal secrets about the nature of density, magnetism, and time that cannot be found anywhere else. Within their crushed interiors, the familiar distinctions between solids, liquids, and gases are unceremoniously discarded, replaced by a state of pure, concentrated essence. Scientists look to these distant spheres to understand the very beginning of the universe, seeing in their dense cores a reflection of the conditions that existed moments after the Big Bang. They are the ultimate libraries of physics, storing information in the form of nuclear pasta and superfluid oceans that defy all terrestrial logic. This knowledge is hard-won, gathered through the careful observation of rhythmic pulses and the ripples of gravitational waves across the void. To understand a neutron star is to understand the limits of what is possible, a journey into the heart of a reality that is both terrifying and unimaginably beautiful. They stand as a bridge between the world we know and the deep, silent mysteries that govern the foundations of space. Future generations of advanced telescopes may one day possess the sensitivity and reach to map these surfaces directly, turning abstract mathematical theories into visible and concrete landscapes. We may eventually look across the light years and see the smooth, glowing iron oceans and the microscopic mountain ranges that define these heavy worlds. Such images would reveal the true face of the remnant, replacing our mathematical models with the vibrant reality of a sphere of light and mass. We would witness the bending of light and the shimmering halo of the Einstein ring as a direct physical experience rather than a theoretical prediction. This mapping would turn these distant phantoms into real places, destinations of the mind that we can explore with the same wonder we feel for our own planetary neighbour. It is a future where the silent ticking metronomes of the galaxy are finally given a visual identity, a face to match the rhythmic heartbeat they have shared with us for eons. The abstract beauty of the pulsar would become the tangible majesty of a perfect iron sphere, a world of absolute symmetry and quiet power. These images will provide a final anchor for our understanding of the stars, grounding our theories in the visible reality of the dark. They endure through the eons as cold, dark monuments to the massive and incredibly bright stars that briefly illuminated the early, chaotic dawn of the cosmos. Long after the vibrant nebulae have dissipated and the radiant giants have faded into memory, these dense cores remain as a permanent record of what once was. They are the skeletal remains of the galaxy's first pioneers, the heavy anchors that stayed behind when the fire of the early universe began to dim. As you notice the deep stillness of your room and the peaceful silence of the night, reflect on these distant survivors and the ancient light they once carried. They are a bridge between the beginning of time and the far future, a constant presence in a universe that is forever in flux. Each one is a silent storyteller, a witness to the birth of galaxies and the slow, rhythmic dance of the stars across the dark. In their quiet, dark existence, they remind us of the enduring nature of mass and the beautiful, terrifying order that binds the entire cosmos together into a single, golden legacy. They are the final markers of a journey that began with fire and light, finding their peace in the deep, cold cradle of the night. These tiny silent spheres are not merely dead stars, but the pulsing golden seeds of the universe, holding both the end of stellar evolution and the literal building blocks of the planets and life that follow. This quiet room is now the anchor of your journey, a safe harbour far removed from the crushing weights of the distant iron oceans. If we were to look closer at the way your body rests, we would see a landscape of perfect stillness that mirrors the quiet of the interstellar void. Notice how the heavy thoughts of spinning pulsars and magnetic webs begin to dissolve, leaving only the soft, rhythmic pull of the earth beneath you. Focus first on your toes, letting them grow heavy as if they were made of the dense, cooling matter of an ancient remnant. This weight spreads upward through your feet and ankles, grounding you in the profound and unchanging peace of the present moment. Your calves and knees are surrendering their tension now, sinking deep into the mattress like a silent monument settling into the dark. Surprisingly, the body knows exactly how to release the day, much like a star surrenders its fire to the freezing dark of the deep sky. The muscles in your thighs and hips are becoming soft and loose, untethered from the frantic energy of the spiral arms. Your lower back is flat and supported, a perfectly smooth horizon that knows no mountains and no struggle. Let the breath move into the space where the ribs expand, a gentle rising that mimics the slow expansion of a distant cooling nebula. Every exhale is a surrender, a letting go of the heat and the light of the day's activity. Your chest is open and calm, and your heart beats with a steady, reliable rhythm that anchors you to the stillness of the night. Every breath you take is a slow, steady wave of comfort that fills your lungs and then recedes into the stillness of the room. The center of your body is rising and falling with a gentle, automatic grace that requires absolutely no thought or effort. This quiet room is a sanctuary of shadow and warmth, shielding you from any remaining noise or light. Notice the way your hands are resting now, the fingers curled slightly and the palms completely relaxed against the sheets. The weight moves up your arms and into your shoulders, melting away any last traces of tightness or holding. Your neck and throat are soft, and the jaw is unclenched, allowing a sense of total and wordless peace to wash over you. The mind is drifting away from the world of facts and figures, sinking into a dreamless and beautiful depth. The air is cool against your skin, a soft contrast to the warmth that is radiating from your core. You're exactly where you need to be, held by the stillness and the dark. The texture of the fabric against your skin is a gentle reminder of the safety of your home. Each muscle in your face is now perfectly slack, losing all expression and all history. The heavy dark is a blanket for the spirit, a deep and welcoming pool where the day's events are finally laid to rest. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.